Doc Savage said, "The growing rash of wealthy men who have perished inexplicably is becoming worrisome."
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, the all-new wild adventures of Doc Savage, the Sinister Shadow. There's some books that are swell. There's some books on the crumb. There's some books so plastic square a classic Dave would never read them at all. Hey buddy, pal, you're reading ding. I don't even own a wireless. Alright, welcome. It's I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I am J.W. Skulker Friedman.
Oh my god, that was exactly the one that I was going to do. So I guess I'm Chris, the man of bronze collision.
Are you actually made of metal or not? Because that's one of the many mysteries that this book contains, which I could not figure out.
I mean, I put a lot of metal into myself, predominantly through the ear canal portion of my body. So perhaps, if indeed you are what you consume, perhaps I am mostly at this point metal and wildly overpriced alcoholic cider.
There you go. So this time around, we are talking about a 2015 reboot of an ancient series of serials, some of which we've talked about before.
Yep.
Doc Savage.
Wow.
But this time around, he's not alone. He's back, but he's with his buddy.
You know, it sucks because, like, pulp stars used to be able to do an entire career without endless features. But now even Doc Savage has got an album of guest tracks by The Shadow.
It's true, yeah. This includes his buddy, paranormal detective The Shadow, as well as features by Lil Wayne and Lil Uzi Vert. I think perhaps if you listen closely, there might be an uncredited Busta Rhymes.
No way. He was available?
Yeah, and Billy Ray Cyrus, because he just really wanted to be relevant again.
just hanging around the door of the studio.
Yeah,
hey guys.
Look, I was on a rap song, guys. What's up?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, in case it got lost in the tangled thickets of our riffing, it should be noted that this is in fact a two-fisted, two-pronged assault of pulp on your sensibilities. The Man of Bronze, Doc Savage, and The Shadow, together again for the very first time.
Teaming up to fight crime?
Or are they?
Or are they? We don't know. We'll find out later, but we know they're both after the same guy.
Yeah.
And
the placeholderiest villain name I think I've ever encountered.
Oh, it's good stuff. Yeah, so the villain in this, before we go any further, is killing rich men by inducing heart attacks via chemical means. Or is he?
Or is he?
I guess that's part of the mystery, too. And he calls himself the funeral director.
Yep, he sure does. And he also calls himself that in conversation with other people. All of his henchmen have, mortician or funeral industry-based names, and they're all ranked. So, like, the bottom are the grave diggers, and then the undertakers are above that, and then, like, I don't know, there's probably a cast of embalmers somewhere. So he's not a half-assed villain by any stretch. He's really put some ass into his gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, there's an organization at work. It reminded me a lot of, like, the Cub Scouts or the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
How you work your way up through the ranks. I just found it here. Kreese understood that there was a hierarchy. The captains and lieutenants immediately beneath the funeral director were known as morticians and undertakers. Below that were pallbearers, of whom Kreese was a lowly recent recruit. Beneath that situation stood the lowly embalmers and gravediggers.
Oh my god, I was pretty sure I'd made up embalmers as a joke.
Nope, they're there. They're at the bottom of the pile.
So that's the villain of the piece. Let's take a step back. How did we find this?
Well, we found this because we've talked about Doc Savage, Man of Bronze, before.
Rawr.
And Doc Savage is a character who is better at everything in the world than everybody else.
Yep.
He has a team of 5 people who are each specialized in one field, like science or being strong,
Yep.
except he's better at that than they are, but he's the only person that is.
Right.
So he's got a team of the second best. And he is essentially Superman, except blonde.
Yeah, and no actual superpowers. He can't fly.
Yeah.
He doesn't have X-ray vision.
He's disturbingly blonde, though. He's referred to many times, I believe hundreds of times in this book, as the Bronze Man.
Yeah.
His hair is bronze. His skin is bronze. His eyes, bronze.
And swimming with gold specks and fleckles that just swim and rotate in the night hypnotically.
And, surprisingly, this book doesn't describe his outfits a lot, but I like to imagine he's one of those dudes who wears those creepy clothes that match his skin tone a little too closely.
So you can't quite tell if you see him like out of the corner of your eye or across the street. Like, is that guy not wearing pants?
Yeah, like I'm sure he's wearing a bronzish khaki outfit, like pretty much everywhere he goes, and you're like, here comes naked guy again.
Well, on the cover, which is outstanding, that's exactly what he's wearing. And the thing is, he tends to get shot a lot. So he's always wearing, a WWE or, professional catcher style chest protector or bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
But his other garments are always bullet tattered. And the cover of this I want to talk about a little bit because it is great.
Yeah.
It's a great pulp cover.
The illustrator even gets a credit in
Yeah.
the book, and unfortunately I didn't write it down, so I don't remember his name. I'll look it up here
Yeah,
while we describe it.
Okay, and so it's basically the Sinister Shadow rising from no points for guessing the shadows, shooting a gun at point blank range at a Doc Savage who's standing with fists like behind his hips, shoulders back, chin up, which is, as has been described by noted MMA commentator and professional comedian Christopher Titus, as not a great defensive posture if you're about to get in a fight.
That's true. Here are all of my vital parts.
Yeah. But it's beautifully painted.
Joe DeVito is
Right.
the artist's name.
Okay, Joe DeVito. And the back matter of the book shows how this book was made, which I think is a really charming and really ingenious thing that I enjoyed a lot. So basically, a guy named Will Murray, who is a Doc Savage super fan, was such a big fan, he became the literary executor of the Doc Savage intellectual property. When he started to write new stuff, which hence the all new, all
Wild.
K Wild, all Doc Savage all the time.
You've tuned in to WILD. All wild all the time, except for Thursday nights when the shadow interrupts to go in a spooky way.
Yes. Yeah, the Shadow's what you would call a super creep. All he does is laugh all the time, and I love it so much.
We'll get more to the shadow in a second.
We'll get to the Shadow. So basically, Will Murray starts to write new Doc Savage material, and the way he gets really cool covers is he reaches out to other superfans and says, "Would you like to commission a piece of art from an artist that we can use as the book cover, and then you'll have it?" So the third guy who gets credited in the back matter of this book is the patron.
It's literally about the patron.
The patron. And I just think that's such a cool way to go about things.
It's really neat.
It's like crowdfunding, but friendly.
Yeah, and it makes the cover really, really look like it fits into the milieu of these old pulps from the 50s because it's painted by someone who, did a lot of work for, this style of fiction back in the day. Later on, though, I want to say like in the 60s or the 70s, but still very much, he's from that school.
Yeah.
And
it's not, I mean, it might be a pastiche, but it's not a parody. It's not a knockoff. It's a guy working in a tradition that he commands, and it's great.
Now,
and I think that's actually also true of Will Murray.
Absolutely. This book is definitely a calculated attempt to emulate a style, and that would be the style of Mr. Walter Gibson, who was the original author of the Doc Savage pulps. And, this was pulp written in the 1920s, I think, for the most part, or the 30s.
Yeah, this is definitely set in the Depression.
Yeah, I want to say the original Doc Savage stuff was from the 20s and 30s. Actually, I know it was because I looked it up, and both he and the Shadow come from that era.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of stylistic quirks that went along with it, a lot of which came from the fact that these were published as serials.
Yeah.
So now Will Murray, I think, is very, very intentionally emulating a lot of these quirks in a way that, he's not making fun of it.
Right.
But it is like period accurate.
Yeah, and I think if I had to divide it up, I would say his handle of the prose is outstanding and fun to read. The plotting seems like it's indebted to serial plotting because it stops to recapitulate stuff an awful lot. Too much, some might say.
I would say too much. Both characters in this book, and I don't know if this was a new invention for the book or just kind of a fact of both of the characters, but they both operate something called an autogyro or an autoplane, which is a plane that has a rotor so it can move straight up and down as well as forwards and backwards.
Right.
These are described to you, the physics behind them, like no less than 5 occasions. So if you want to know how an autogyro worked,
right,
you're going to find out, and you're going to find out multiple times.
And whose is better? Well, sometimes it's Doc's. I think it has a little more power, but the Shadow's might be a tad more nimble.
But it's definitely more mystical.
Yeah. One of the charming things about this book, I thought, was how in love it is with the super science of a long outmoded age. Like, there's a lot of time spent with a slightly better radio system.
Yeah.
That Doc has invented.
Or Doc has invented an elevator that travels slightly faster than a normal elevator.
It's an elevator that will take you all the way to the top to the bottom without having to stop. It's amazeballs.
Yeah, totally. Doesn't have to stop on the 40th floor to transfer.
Yeah.
It goes all the way from top to bottom because the future.
Yes. And that is actually accurate. I remember that description of the elevator from the Doc Savage book, the actual, vintage Doc Savage book we did a couple of months ago, which name I can't remember, but it might have been the Green Bell.
I think it was the Green Bell.
Yeah. And that also had a plot that I had extraordinary difficulty following, I would confess.
I mean, and you mentioned that and the kind of endless repetition of the same point, but in addition to that, there are also situations that occur frequently over and over again to the point where the Shadow has 2 henchmen who at one point get captured by the funeral director's henchmen.
At one point?
Well, yes. At one point, they get captured by the funeral director's henchmen. They escape. They sneak around. And then about 100 pages later, they get captured again.
Womp, womp.
And sneak around some more. And I believe they might even get captured for a 3rd time.
It's some extremely Star Trek red shirt action with these guys.
Yes. And by the way, I did say 100 pages later because... Yeah. Starting this book, we were not aware. We're like, that Doc Shadow book, that was a fun little... Doc Shadow. Doc Savage book.
Doc Shadow.
That Doc Savage book we read before, that was a fun little short thing to read.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun. 470 pages. I lied to a lot of people on Twitter, I guess, accidentally, because about 10% into the book, I was like... we're reading something I actually enjoy, and I think this is going to be a really positive episode. I still think it's going to be relatively positive. However, I can't say that I was still enjoying myself by page 470. It had begun to feel a bit like work.
We spent a lot too much time with those aforementioned henchmen of the Shadows. Like, I'm sorry, guys, what does it say on the cover of the book? Who is depicted on the cover of the book? That's Doc Savage. That's the Shadow. It's not a possibly sleazy crime reporter, and I can't even remember what Harry Vincent does. I think it's revealed at the very end he, quote, works for an investment banker.
Yeah.
Whatever the heck that means.
He's just a guy who works for the Shadow also.
Yeah, way too much time on these fellows. I need to spend my time with the man of bronze and a sinister, behatted, big-nosed figure firing guns.
So basically, to answer the earlier question, the way we found this is we had read a Doc Savage book and enjoyed it and wanted to read some more Doc Savage, and then found out there was a team up, a modern day crossover.
Well, I didn't know it was modern day. I thought it might be vintage until I actually got through the purchasing process and realized, oh no, this is a remix.
You should describe the purchasing process, because I think I will admit that I think this is going to influence my take a little bit as well, and I know it's going to influence yours.
Yeah.
So
big ups to Will Murray, the man who wrote this, because when I bought it off the website, I clicked around for seriously 15 or 20 minutes after completing the purchase process and could not find a way to download the book. So I sent an email, and within 15 or so minutes, got an email back from Will Murray saying, oh yeah, here you go. They changed the website. I'm not quite sure how everything works yet. Which he did, I believe, at about 11:30 on a weekday night, his time. So huge ups to him. And
attach the ebook.
Oh, yeah. And just emailed it directly to me.
Yeah.
So huge ups to him. Like, that's total above and beyond and much appreciated. And, like, I don't think that casts a rosy haze over the book. I think I liked the book and would have liked the book regardless. But to know that the person at the other end of it is, in fact, like a stand-up person and an enthusiast and all those things just really made me happy.
Yeah, it's not somebody who's going to ignore your email and be like, haha, sucker, got your $6 or whatever. However, we need to talk about The Shadow. It's one of the weirdest and most depressing movies I've ever seen.
What, the Alec Baldwin one?
No, I meant we need to talk about Kevin, but...
Oh, right.
The Alec Baldwin movie, The Shadow, there's nothing weird or depressing about it. It's just horribly offensive.
Well, it definitely has those moments. I kind of like it, but that's mostly just because I like the architecture in it.
I like everything between the beginning and the end, but there's some pretty offensive mysticism going on there.
That's very true.
Although, you can still get away with that if you make a Batman movie, so whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. However,
sorry, we derailed ourselves with Batman talk. That might be a first.
I mean, we're talking about The Shadow.
Yeah, okay.
Let's be fair. There's not that huge of a difference here. But here's my thing about The Shadow. And I admit there are probably many people out there who know way more about The Shadow than I do. There's probably people listening to this who are Shadow fans. And we'll listen to this and go, man, this guy's stupid. Doesn't he know anything?
But you've read 470 pages about The Shadow.
Yes, I now have read 470 pages about The Shadow, who can apparently turn into some kind of mist and disappear against a wall or through a closed door, but then also was a man who was disfigured in the war. And I still, at the end of this book, do not know if the Shadow is a human being or not. That's weird.
I like it. Because I don't know either.
Yeah.
But if he's supernatural, I'll just say this. His attack techniques are unconventional for a supernatural being.
He's shooting people with two guns?
Yeah, exactly. 2 Colt 45 semi-automatics just blasting away is not what I expect from my, possibly magical ghost type figures.
And once again, to get to the kind of Batman tie-ins here, Doc Savage, on the other hand, he doesn't kill criminals.
Yeah,
that's one of his rules. He does something that is described as being far more humane, but is actually kind of horrifying.
It's terrifying and fascist, yes.
Yes. What he does is he transports them to a secret facility where, against their will, he performs brain surgery to make them hate crime, forget their past, and then trains them for a new job in the straight world. Yeah,
usually, I think, only implicitly a menial job of some kind.
Yeah, it's very true. Running a newspaper stand, working a lunch counter.
Security guard.
Yeah. It's a little...
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've done all those jobs. I just think, Doc is maybe nerfing the bad guys a tiny bit.
Yeah, I mean, Doc as prison abolitionist, I'm a fan of. However,
Doc as non-consensual mind control figure.
yeah, and I mean, you imagine there have to have been some failures.
Yeah.
It's kind of a scary thought.
And what does he call this creepy upstate New York facility?
I don't remember.
The Crime College. Which is mostly a bummer to me because Crime College is just such a cool name. I wish they had reserved that for like some master criminal pumping out highly trained criminals to flood the streets of Manhattan. Oh, wait. I guess I'm talking about Harvard Business School.
Oh! See, I was going to say it reminds me of the trade school that I went to where I mostly learned how to sell weed in small amounts for a large profit. Allegedly. Oh, man. So, the Shadow... Yeah.
So one of the things you do, whenever you're weighing your own weed, you always get a tear weight. When you're selling the weed, they're paying for the bag, too.
Yep.
The bag weighs something.
It does. It's true. Or you could just, find people who don't know any better.
Yeah, I didn't even go to college for this. I like to think I'm just a talented amateur at getting my ass kicked for ripping people off in bad drug deals.
Okay, so
yeah, question for the audience, because I can't fucking answer it. Is the Shadow a human being?
Yeah, we don't know. One thing I do know, though, is that this book really is something that is presented as Doc Savage and the Shadow team up to fight a villain, the funeral director. And it's really not that. Like, mostly what it is the two of them separately hunting this villain, getting in each other's way, fighting each other several times. And I made a note of it. They literally team up at the 86% mark,
right,
because our ebooks didn't have page numbers. So out of 470 pages, at the 86th percentile is when the two of them agree they're going to work together to take this guy down.
So this is a time-honored tradition in at least superhero comics, right? When two heroes meet, the first thing they have to do is fight. And then after the fight, or sometimes even by means of the fight, they realize they're on the same side. And then, only then, can they team up. Or in this case, I would say form an uneasy truce. Because Doc is not going to waver about his no-killing policy. Although, as we know, lots of Doc's enemies do tend to end up dead. But it's not because he shot them. He only shoots with the funniest phrase in the book, mercy bullets.
And if that's not already the name of a garage rock band?
Or a porn star.
Good call. It's kind of the alt porn sort of name, yeah, for sure.
It should be. And so he only shoots with mercy bullets, but an awful lot of his villains end up dead.
I can't stop hearing mercy bullets and imagining a woman with like a pageboy haircut and a whole lot of tattoos. I'm sorry.
This will be the last episode.
You're the one who put it in my head.
Anyway, a lot of Doc's enemies end up dead, but it's not because he shot them with anything but mercy bullets. It's because they end up hoisted by their own petard. If they created a death ray, it will go off before it explodes and be aimed only at them. If they've created a mega bomb, it will inevitably blow up on their plane, killing them and them alone. And the Shadow does something similar at the very, very end, where Doc has forced him to leave his guns behind, so he just runs the bad guys off the road. They crash their car, and their own poison gas leaks out and kills them all.
Yeah.
Womp womp. And the Doc basically has to admit this to the police commissioner, who doesn't believe in the Shadow and in fact refuses to believe in the Shadow. And Doc has to do this,
like, to the point of absolute refusal. Like,
I will not hear about the Shadow.
The Shadow could walk up and wave and go, "I'm the Shadow," and then disappear, and he'd be like, "Well, the Shadow definitely does not exist."
Which actually happens in this scene, because there's a suspicious janitor janiting in the background during this conversation, and is just like giving sinister laughs. And the one thing we do know about the Shadow, motherfucker laughs sinister-like.
Yeah, all the time.
But anyway, Doc has to admit that the Shadow kind of went around the rules, but didn't actually kill these people himself, and it does it in a very game-recognized game fashion.
Yeah.
You know, it was really one for the true fans, where he's like, the Shadow really pulled an old Samson move there.
Speaking of one for the true fans, and by the way, I realize this is the longest we've gone before Plot in 60 Seconds, but I think it's really because this book explains itself. We will do Plot in 60 Seconds here for a second, but I wanted to read an Amazon review of this. This is a 5-star review because I think it goes a lot towards describing who the audience is and also how little I know about the Shadow.
The audience is Chris Collision.
5 stars. Will Murray hits this one out of the park. The Sinister Shadow reads at times like Lester Dent, who wrote The Shadow, wrote it, and at other times as if Walter Gibson, who wrote Doc Savage, was back among us. Sure, the characters are a bit well-defined, one-dimensional. I think that's a mistake there. And both the bad guys and the good guys make dumb decisions, and the language is a bit over the top, but that's the point. This is a real pulp novel.
Yep.
You often hear he was born too soon, but in this case, Murray was born too late. He would have fit right in back in the heyday of the pulps. Murray does an excellent job giving all the characters a bit of screen time, and you keep wondering whether the Shadow and Doc will really team up, or will the Shadow be on the run for Doc from years to come. And I just loved the final line of the book, though I wonder if any pure Doc fans, who might not be Shadow fans, will understand it.
I mean...
And the last line of the book is a character going into jail.
Wow, at me, bro.
Yeah. Last line of the book is a character who's going to prison, and he says, my name is something something, but from now on, I'm going by Hawkeye, which I guess if you're a Shadow fan, that means something. I don't think it means he's Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, probably not.
I have no idea. He's like...
Marvel Comics' own Purple Arrow.
Yeah. I'm going in prison in the 1930s, but don't worry, I'll be back in the early 2000s for a surprisingly genre-redefining tale written by Matt Fraction and illustrated with beautiful, beautiful drawings about a man trying to save his apartment from a Russian gang who want to buy his building. It's the only comic book I like, people. Sorry.
I like this stuff so much better than comic books because it has absolutely nothing to do with comic books, as I believe we will discover in Plot in 60 Seconds.
Okay, so let's finally get down to it.
Boppers.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them a plot in 60 seconds.
Are you ready?
Buck. Heck yes.
Begin.
The place is New York, and also New Jersey. The time is 1933 or 4, and America writhes in the grip of the Depression. Rich men are dropping dead of heart attacks, times are so bad, and eventually this catches the eye of the man of bronze himself, the giant two-fisted super scientist Doc Savage, because Ham Brooks, the sword-slinging lawyer, and his posse gets kidnapped and ransomed by a sinister figure calling himself the Funeral Director. As Doc investigates, he swiftly discerns that Ham got scooped because the funeral director was coming after some fine fellows with murky connections to a figure of legend, a criminal preying on criminals, and coming on the radio at 7 p.m. on Thursday to speak ominously for like 3 minutes on things that are extremely relevant to the current plot. Yes, it's the Shadow. Doc and the Shadow will have to square off before they team up to take down the funeral director in a real Superman versus Batman battle for people who like to say, oh yeah, I only liked their first 7-inch.
Yep, pretty much.
So that's pretty much what happens. I left out all of the actual plot for several reasons. One, I don't think it really matters too much because what really matters is, as you already said, it's Doc pursuing the funeral director and getting interfered with by the Shadow. It's the Shadow pursuing the funeral director and getting interfered with by and interfering with Doc Savage. And then far, far too much about their respective crews butting heads. Far too much.
Now, it should be mentioned that The Shadow was actually a radio show at one point in time.
Yeah.
And, it's very famous for its catchphrase, which is something along the lines of, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
The Shadow knows.
And one of my favorite parts of this book is that the Shadow has a radio show
Yes.
in the world of the book. And in addition to that, in a very, very kind of semi-forced way, but an entertainingly forced way, the author feels the need to kind of get the shadow shit in a lot of cases. So the phrase "the shadow knows" is employed in very, very bizarre and really, really kind of silly places. Like, for instance, he'll be doing something like writing down like, I wonder what I should get for dinner tonight. Should I go to the diner or should I stay home and cook? Short rib or perhaps a polenta? The shadow knows.
I mean, that's a little unfair, but only a tiny bit. The thing that I actually really like about this from a pushes glasses up nose metatextual perspective is this is a world where Doc Savage is unquestionably real. But the Shadow radio program is also real. And then it turns out, because the Doc didn't really know this before the events of this book, the Shadow too is real.
Yeah, everyone knows Doc Savage is real. The Shadow's existence is kind of a mystery.
And I kind of like the way that unfolds through the course of the book. This is one of those rare pulp books where things actually happen and they actually have consequences. Like, nobody relevant dies necessarily, but at the beginning, Doc does not really know the Shadow exists. By the end, they kind of know each other.
Yeah.
In fact, they've possibly played some dress up together, if you know what I mean. Wink.
It's possible. You don't know. But I do want to mention, you said I was being unfair. I am not being unfair at all.
He never writes a shopping list.
He doesn't write a shopping list, for sure. But he does write like a list of like, which one of these potential criminals could it be? And then writes a list of like 5 people and then ends it by writing, the Shadow knows.
Right. No, what he does do that several times. Maybe this is actually a good point for high points and low points.
Yeah, let's do that. High points, low points. Here we go. Points.
High points are high. And low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
So what I was going to say is the way the Shadow is described is a real high point for me throughout, because it's I'm just going to say it. It's subtle, but whenever the Shadow is described, it's as basically disconnected parts. It's a shadow creeping across things, and it's hands and flashlight beams and eyes. It's not this kind of unitary bodily experience that's being described, and it does go a long way to sort of establishing the Shadow as a kind of an inhuman figure. And one of the ways this is done is whenever the Shadow needs to retire to his sanctum sanctorum, what he'll do is he'll write in disappearing ink his thoughts. And then as it's fading out, will, sign in like Donald Trump's signature vision, the Shadow knows, and then it disappears.
Yeah.
And like, it's unclear why he's always doing this. It's never explained, but I thought it was spooky and cool. So the reason I called it unfair is because you said you don't like cilantro, and I do like cilantro.
It is also usually just described as a disembodied hand.
Yeah.
They're like, a hand appeared in the darkness to write this
Yeah.
note.
And I just literally, I thought that was really kind of cool.
I'm going to just kind of piggyback on this before I get to my first high point, in that, like, I really agree. I think I maybe was viewing the Shadow as a bit more of a normal guy, like kind of doing a cosplay experience than you were. But I will say that, like, I found his commitment to his gimmick to be like 100% great. It's like when you hear stories about the old pro wrestler, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, who was forced to carry around tons of money, forced to.
You're not going to run into him at the grocery outlet. He's not shopping for bargains.
He was literally told by his boss, if you walk into a bar, you buy everybody at the bar a drink because you're the $1 Million Man. And I'm like, look, this is kind of what Doc Shadow is doing. This is one of my favorite quotes. As the dark figure which had dropped from the sky, a black billowing mass like smoke squirted out above it. With a low boom of a sound, it became a parachute. A black parachute.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I got to agree. The Shadow is a very, very interesting character. I guess my first high point is also going to be about the Shadow, which it's very similar to what I just said, but he sticks to his shtick constantly. Like, there is no point where in this the Shadow is portrayed as like leaning back in his recliner and smoking a pipe and wearing some slippers and reading a light novel or something like that. It's like he is always the Shadow. And even to the point where, the Shadow doesn't buy a newspaper. The Shadow takes a newspaper from a newspaper boy without being seen and sneakily replaces it with a whole $1, all while remaining completely invisible to the crowd.
Wow.
So he's kind of doing close magic there. Or he'll appear in the back of a taxi, and then while the taxi driver is driving, he'll disappear from the taxi, and a bill will just magically float into the taxi driver's lap. And it really it got me to thinking about a lot of awesome kind of day-to-day situations that the Shadow might be in, which may have influenced my earlier grocery store note. But it made me think of, like, you're working at Arby's, say, at the cash register, and you hear a sinister laugh from the back, and a man go, "Giant roast beef sandwich, please," and then disappear in a poof of smoke. And then suddenly there's just a hand reaching in through the drive-thru window. Then after you give him this sandwich, you look, and the pocket of your corporate-sponsored polo has a $20 bill in it.
I mean... The problem is that's not even an exaggeration of what the Shadow uses his superpowers for. Like, how many times in the course of this book does he sneak into the back of a cab and the cabbie is explicitly described as surprised that there was somebody in his cab because he didn't know it until the Shadow says, "Take me to Manhattan." It's at least 4 times.
The Shadow uses his powers for menial tasks, which is great.
Yeah.
Like, if the Shadow were to say, "Go to the library," the Shadow would just appear in a poof of smoke in probably the young adult section.
Yes.
Find the particular paranormal shapeshifter romance that he was looking for. Whisk it to the front counter using the powers of his mind, and then reappear directly behind the librarian, scan the book himself, then leave, and then somehow money would be involved, like magically fall from the ceiling.
It's like you can conjure into existence items heretofore unimaginable, and you use it to give yourself a slightly better microwave.
Yeah.
It's like being able to teleport and using it to get to the bus stop on your way to work.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he does, he also uses it to fight crime. He just never stops.
Right.
It's amazing.
There is no off position on the Shadow's gimmick.
It's like when you know a funny guy who just never stops telling jokes. The Shadow's like that, except he's that way with, like, weird close magic tricks or perhaps actual mystical powers, because as I mentioned earlier, I still do not know if he is a human being or a magical creature.
I think he's a human being. I'm going to guess that he's a human being who was taught certain magical secrets, but those secrets came at a price.
He met Tilda Swinton, and she taught him to do cool things with his fingers that make magic happen.
Yes.
Okay.
I also just censored a really inappropriate joke. So,
okay.
Speaking of low points,
I too would like to meet Tilda Swinton. Anyway.
Okay, so this is hilarious to me because you explicitly mentioned that the Shadow doesn't buy papers. 2 or 3 separate times in this book, super detective Doc Savage sends his henchman Monk Mayfair out. Sorry, ape-like chemist Monk Mayfair out to buy the papers so they can figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And as I've mentioned many times, I had real trouble parsing the plot of this, and I think one of the moments of this book explains why. Doc Savage handed the newsie a $20 bill to cover the damages and raced to a police call box in an effort to alert headquarters that the missing millionaire who might or might not be the Shadow was racing through the city in his stolen sedan to an unknown destination. Okay, Doc,
that's a lot of uncertainty.
You're the detective here. If this is what you're reporting as newsworthy, actionable information, I think we got a problem here. And by we, I mean me. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to tell me.
Well, as mentioned, I read some of the Amazon reviews of this just because I was curious.
Yeah.
And most of them are positive because most of them are obviously written by people who are fans of the characters. There's also definitely some...
People like Chris Collision.
Yes. And then there's definitely some kind of comic book guy-ishness going on once you get down into the 2-star range. And a lot of it does kind of align with what you were saying. They're like, Doc Savage is a super detective.
Right.
Why does he act like a bumbling fool for most of this book? Which I do think is kind of a valid point. And I think I have a theory why. It's because, the author wanted this book explicitly to be different than the other Doc Savage books he was writing. He's introduced a new character. A lot of the story revolves around him. Doc Savage is going to fade into the background a little bit. But the way that happens is he's kind of made into a dummy.
So you have to bring up the Shadow, so he's a credible threat to Doc Savage, and one of the ways to do that is to bring Doc down a little bit. There's probably some wrestling terminology that I don't know that you're thinking of right now.
Yeah, but I won't get into it. But yeah, definitely,
Oh, but I wanted to talk about hockey. I was just trying to bait you.
I already made my $1 million man thing. That's once per episode.
Oh, shit, that's true. And I didn't respond with a boring hockey factoid.
Are there any hockey guys that used to have to buy drinks for everyone at the bar?
So rookies traditionally are forced to do shit like that as part of the, macho bullshit that permeates man culture.
But that's their money. They're not given walking around money by the boss to do this, right?
No, they're extremely not.
Well, that's fucked up then.
It extremely is.
That is what we call toxic masculinity.
Ding, 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 ding. But although I have to say that the hockey boys are toxically masculine, but it's gone to a really weird place. Teams used to have certain home, field advantages because there were legendary bars on their stops. You know what I mean? In their town. And people, Vancouver had a home court advantage because players would routinely and legendarily get obliterated at the Roxy the night before. And so when they would play poorly because they had the Roxy flu. Now things have evolved to the point where a lot of teams are just banning players from bringing their PlayStations and Xboxes on the road with them.
I was just going to say Fortnite is about to come up, isn't it?
There was a kid who was literally... There were rumors floating that a guy was actually going to be cut from his team because he could not stop playing Fortnite.
There's an amazing video. Gosh, I wish I could remember who it is. Oh, it's Carlos Santana, the baseball player, not the guitar player, who's known for having a very, very fiery temper, getting super pissed off. And there's a video of him.
Oh, I don't want to hear about a heated gaming moment.
No, it's him being so mad that all of the rookies won't stop playing Fortnite.
Oh,
that after a game, he destroys a water cooler with a bat while screaming about effing Fortnite.
Although I want to jump back, there legendarily back in the day, George Brett and a couple of other Royals, this is towards the end of George Brett's career, were disciplined because they were playing rotisserie baseball in the clubhouse.
That is so nerdy.
How cool/lame is that?
How many how many of them do you think got their own selves on their team?
Oh, I think basically that's probably a rule in the custom league. You must have yourself.
Yeah, and they won't put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Come on.
What? I mean, you're not saying people gamble on rotisserie baseball, are you?
I don't know.
How could that be?
All I know about rotisserie baseball is the name makes me hungry.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Okay, so I think I have to do a low point. And I have a real big low point with this book, but I'm saving it for my dramatic reading. So I would say that I think my lowest low point of this book is just the length. And I know the author is very excited about getting an opportunity to write about these two characters. His enthusiasm shines throughout the entire book. It doesn't at any point really begin to drag, per se, but 470 pages of a pulp novel is too much. And by the end of this, I felt tired. I felt very exhausted. I think there's just too much of it. This could have been 3 books, especially because of the way that it kind of stops and starts several times. This did not need to be a 470-page doorstop, and I think that's definitely my first low point for sure.
I think that's extremely fair. My low point is much more narrow than that, and I think this book does a phenomenal job of being very true to the source material without being inappropriate in modern terms. Because our politics have changed in the 90 years since these characters were first birthed.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed as well. I was like, wow, there's a distinct lack of racism here.
Except for one place where the foot is placed wrong. I'm just going to read it. So minor content warning for
people.
Poorly chosen racialized language.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm going to give a little bit of preface because it's just funny to me. Monk's eyes narrowed. Do we bust in? The bronze man shook his head. Stealth is preferable. Suiting action to words, Doc carefully crept closer. He walked with no excess movements, pausing here and there, showing that he had once learned the art of stalking from a Cherokee brave. Red lights starting to flash. This particular red man... sirens going off. And the reason it was such a low point is because it was such an unforced error. It was so, strike the word red.
Yeah.
Now your book is one word shorter, which I think everybody basically appreciates.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's also far more appropriate.
Yes. This particular man could sneak up on a dozing bear, pluck a tuft of fur, and retreat before the Bruin awoke. So all of that, 1,000%, well, no. All of that, 45% okay. There's lots of sneaky people in the world. We don't have to describe all of them as Native Americans.
Yeah, very true.
But
especially in a world where you're surrounded by, pickpockets and thieves. But yeah,
yeah. Anyway, so that was like I said, a major unforced error. I didn't think it had any real place in the book.
Oh, okay. I need another low point.
Oh, do you? Okay,
I do. Because you started out, and I think for me, just definitely, this is something we've alluded to earlier. The fact that the two characters don't really discover that each other exist and team up until quite a ways into the book is a letdown. I know you have to have the dance to start out with. You have to set up the scene. That you have to have the kind of will they, won't they going on, but I don't think it needs to last quite as long as it does. I think Pam and Jim got together somewhere around season... Actually, I'm not even going to say I don't know what fucking season it was they finally got together, but I'm just saying it doesn't need to last that long. You're not writing a television script that needs to, say, perhaps go on forever. You're writing a book that has an ending. Mm-hmm. So... there was plenty of opportunity for this to happen much earlier. I think the stuff that happens once they do join, kind of forces and fight together is some of the more interesting action scenes in the book. So I feel like having them link up earlier would lead to a lot less kind of pointless repetition and a lot more cool action. Yeah. So that was a low point.
As you say, I'm very strongly on team. This should have been a couple of books. I think the first one should have been them working at cross purposes the whole time. And then the funeral director gets away. And then the second time, maybe they actually, have a meeting of the minds and the fists, if you will.
I think maybe it's because I just watched Stranger Things, but when you said working at, I was immediately what popped into my mind was the mall. Book one should have been the two of them just working at Baskin Robbins.
Oh, that would have been great. I would like to see. I would really like to see Doc Savage in a sailor suit, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Who knows if there's any pistachio left in the freezer? The Shadow knows.
Yeah. Okay, so shit. Do I owe another low point or another high point?
High points.
All right. So I'm just going to say that the high point for me was the prose. It was heated in fine, pulpy fashion, and I'm just going to read a couple, 3 little examples that aren't going to fit anywhere else, but that you, the podcast listener, have to hear. Instead, they locked on to the metallic countenance of Doc Savage, standing slightly behind him like a tower of well-tailored muscles.
Tower of well-tailored muscles is underlined, highlighted in my book.
Yep.
Because that is an amazing way to describe a human being.
That is an amazing way to describe a human being. And also will probably be the title of, of Roman Reigns' next album.
I was just going to say, like, if you've ever seen, like, a super swole dude in a really nicely fitting suit.
Dave Bautista, looking at you.
There you go. He also a tower of well-tailored muscles. And I was going to, suggest maybe tuning into the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony if you'd like to see many towers of well-tailored muscles, because there's something kind of amazing about seeing a human being with the proportions of a superhero in a suit that fits correctly. Yeah. Because it doesn't happen that often.
And, the fact that they're all getting there to honor somebody who's probably on tape making racist jokes or saying awful things.
Or doing an entire briefcase worth of cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. It just brings a tear to the eye.
No, but I'm just saying, generally, when men are incredibly well built and huge and beyond the size of normal human proportions, they tend to wear very ill-fitting clothes. Yeah. So well-tailored tower of muscles it's a nice touch.
It's a nice touch.
He didn't buy it off the rack at a big and tall shop, man.
Oh, hell no. But you know what else wasn't bought off the rack is the car that Harry's driving. Outfitted. Harry is one of the Shadow's henchmen. The sucking and popping of the tire tread on the dew-wet pavement lifted to a howl as Harry put his weight on the foot feed. Okay, foot feed, extremely good and cool way to describe the accelerator pedal. As he walked along the corridor to the elevator shaft, the soft laugh of the Shadow caressed the floral wallpaper.
I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think foot feed is a good word at all. I think it sounds like some obscure, weird, gross fetish that I would accidentally pop up in like Pornhub or something and really disturb the hell out of me. So anyway, continue.
The Shadow dispensed
Mercy bullets might be involved.
Oh yeah, the Mercy Bullets foot feed. You don't subscribe to that?
Oh, God damn it.
The Shadow dispensed bullet justice and mocking laughter in equal measure, driving their hasty retreat. This is actually another high point for me. The Shadow just never stops laughing. He laughs when he's alone. He laughs when he's hiding, because you can't tell where he's hiding. And most amusingly and effectively, he laughs when he's fighting. So you're locked in mortal combat with this man who's basically like bamfing in and out of your plane of existence. You can't get your hands on him, but you can feel his hands, they're fists, and they're hitting the point of your jaw. And the entire time, he's laughing at you.
And let's be real, he's kind of described like Orko from He-Man. He's a hat and a cloak that just kind of float around. That's all.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all the enemies see. So if you just imagine that with like some red eyes going while wildly firing automatic pistols, that's pretty scary.
That's scary as fuck. Okay, speaking of Stranger Things, the urchin hoped more strange things like that would happen to him.
Me too. Can't wait for season 4.
Just one or two more. This is a great description of this. Pronging the switch hook, Doc called the building switchboard and requested that the call be traced.
Pronging the switch hook.
Pronging the switch hook. A pistol shot rang out and Doc ducked back, shielding Long Tom from a leaden unpleasantry.
That's a great phrase.
And then I want to read just a couple that make me think that old Will Murray's mind might have been turning to something else at the end of his writing day. So at one point, a guy's trying to get away. Doc throws one of his chemical-filled glass globules at him, and it doesn't knock him out. What did it do? Oh, it marked him for tracking later. And that man is described as his coat and trousers, hat and shoes, all encrusted with a salty residue. What is he, 15?
Oh!
And the hat?
Whoa. Don't go to the roller rink, dude.
Yeah.
It's just going to be bad news.
Yeah.
Couple stand starts, the black lights come on.
And you're going to look like a jerk.
You're going to need to hide in the bathroom for sure.
From the concealed mouth of the Shadow came another laugh, this time of high hilarity. An uproarious outburst that told that the Master of Darkness was both impressed and amused by the audacity of this Herculean interloper who had penetrated his deepest dwelling place.
That got a little sexual.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing quite yet. Let me find it, and then I'll be done. Okay, one more before I get that, and then I'll be done. As he came even with the utility closet, it fell open. A rowdy black cloud popped out of the door to envelop him. The word rowdy there is worth the purchase price alone for me.
I love the word rowdy.
Yeah.
Especially when it's used to describe anything but a human being.
Yeah.
Like, rowdy crowd, not so interested in
No.
it, but a rowdy sports car.
Yeah. Wow, this is a rowdy IPA.
Yeah.
Only the ragged sounds of men breathing hard were heard. Then came the meaty noise of fists colliding with jaws, men going down. Other sounds of close-quarter physical combat. Ow! A man yelled. Something stung me. So yeah, it gets a little randy up in here, and I liked it. I loved it. There's
some scenes with suction cups where they're definitely referred to as sucking sounds happening in the complete darkness. That happens too.
Who knows what dark fantasies lie in the hearts of men?
The shadow knows.
Ding, 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 ding. All right. Anyway, that was the world's longest high point.
So for me, my last high point, and this is very narrow, but also kind of funny. One of Doc Savage's quirks, in fact, I'd say one of the only things that makes him less than perfect, is when he's thinking or when he's distressed, he does something that's described as trilling in this book.
He gets trill.
Yeah, he does get trill. And the trilling sound is described as such. Doc Savage's trilling piped up, sounding concerned. Low to begin with, it rose in volume until it swelled into a sound that might have suggested an anxious wind filtering through a fantastic forest of strings and wires. Now, I don't know if anybody at home has ever owned a guinea pig, but this is the sound guinea pigs make when they're angry. And as such, I couldn't help but imagine this giant man of bronze, as he's constantly referred to, going...
Squeak, 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 squeak.
Give me food, give me food. Yeah, and it happens a lot, and it's very hard to imagine this, Superman who commands a team of slightly lesser Supermen, sitting in a room full of them making guinea pig sounds while they all just pretend this is perfectly normal.
You just ruined this book for me. You may have just ruined Doc Savage as a whole for me.
So, yeah, no, that's a high point for me. Because I love to imagine Doc Savage making guinea pig sounds.
It probably smells like a guinea pig, too.
Guinea pigs only smell if you don't clean their cages, I will say this. Guinea pigs, pretty interesting creatures, fun to have around. Most people who have them don't take nearly as much care of them as they should. They put them in spaces that are far too small for them. You should go on the internet, look up the appropriate size enclosure for a guinea pig. It's much larger than what they're going to sell you at PetSmart.
Yep.
You'll have a happier guinea pig. Your guinea pig will be more fun to be around.
And if you let your guinea pig hop around the house, just know that they are chewers by nature, and all books on the bottom shelf will be eaten.
Yep, definitely. And also, yeah, you could technically litter train them. But that doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
So if you let your guinea pig hop around the house, you might want to invest in a Roomba.
No. Should we take a break?
Yeah, I think we should take a break.
We're talking about guinea pigs and Roombas.
All right, let's go to break.
So that's if a guinea pig were hyper-caffeinated Beavis?
That's just kind of what I get. Oh, I didn't say it. I didn't mention one of my favorite parts here. There's a lot of nonverbal vocalizing in this, not just the shadows laugh and the trilling. But at one point, the funeral director is speaking into the radio, and it says, a low muttering came out of the radio set. The sounds were not words, nevertheless. They conveyed clearly the fact that the funeral director was wildly excited. That's Beavis.
Oh my God, that is Beavis.
I just imagine.
Those are not words, but they convey excitement.
It's the prelude to a Cornholio moment.
Yep.
So anyway,
It's the come up, if you will.
yeah. So on that highly literary note, I suggest we take a break. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Who knows what lurks in segment 2? We know.
Segment 2, the only segment brought to you by Clemson's Whitening Powder, the whitest whitening powder on the market today. Clemson's Whitening Powder. Use it on your car.
So we're going to start out here with I'd say...
Yeah, sorry, we take ads now.
Yeah, we do. And this is going to be the most highly sponsored segment in podcasting history. This is Dramatic Readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
So in Dramatic Readings, we take pieces from this book, we read them to you, so it's like an audiobook, but shittier.
Less professional and we don't try as hard.
Exactly.
Yay!
The room's a lot bigger and not treated for sound.
Waka waka.
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'd love to go first. So this is a tense situation not involving the Shadow or Doc at all. Wealtha nodded and bit her red lips. Her lustrous raven-wing hair was disheveled, but still beautiful to behold.
Don't worry.
She's still pretty. Harry commented, "It's deuced queer they should put us together, but let's take advantage of it. Miss Cranston, have you a hairpin?" "I can't reach my head with my hands," murmured the young woman, "but there may be one left." With flippering movements, Harry crossed the concrete floor to her side. He managed to fumble in her fine raven hair, although the manacles held his wrists behind him. His fingers found a tiny, springy hairpin. "I'll see if I can free your handcuffs," he told her. "Luckily, they are an old trunk key type." Picking the lock of the cuffs proved to be a tedious task, but at last Harry was successful. "Now see what you can do with mine," Harry requested. The young woman went to work. Her fingers were evidently more supple than Harry's, because she had his wrist free in a very short time.
Or maybe Harry just sucks at picking locks.
Harry was also doing it backwards behind his head. So
I just want to say, the possibility is not even granted that she just might be better at this than he is.
because of her supple fingers, it is
Yeah.
granted. "That's fine," he told her softly. He busied himself on Clyde Burke's manacles, freeing him also. "You're the skipper," Clyde told Harry.
It's good stuff.
I love it.
So for my dramatic reading, I'm going to introduce us to a character who is one of Doc's 5 second best at what they do partners.
You really can't get over that.
I love it. I love it because Doc has to be the best at everything.
Oh, yeah.
So his super team are people who are almost as good as Doc, but not quite as good.
And I think in this book that's explained, because it has to be explained every book, because every book could be somebody's first book.
Yeah.
I believe that gets explained by Ham Brooks, the super lawyer. And I really just want to know what constitutes Doc as a better lawyer than Ham.
Nicer suits.
Damn it. Asked and answered.
So this is the introduction to the second best chemist in the world, a Monk Mayfair, who... Poor Monk.
Poor Monk.
And you'll see why after I get through this.
Are you going to do an accent for Monk?
I am definitely going to do a voice for Monk. Chapter 4, The Wonder Worker. A bronze desk telephone, reposing on an ebony table inset with ivory, rosewood, and other rare inlays, buzzed twice before a hairy hand reached out to snag it. The hand brought the handset to a mouth so wide it might have been an accident of nature. The visage around it rather resembled a well-worn catcher's mitt that had been twisted into an approximation of a Neanderthal's homely countenance.
Ew.
Twinkling eyes were small and sunk in pits of gristle under low-hanging brows. Fists had pounded a modest nose into submission.
Doc Savage headquarters, Monk speaking,
said the owner of the mouth in a squeaking voice, one very much like a small boy. Mr. Mayfair, this is the captain of the guards. Gus in the lobby reports that there has been an altercation outside. Mr. Brooks appears to be kidnapped.
That fool shyster. I mean, what do you mean?
I only saw part of the altercation. Hoodlums in 2 black cars accosted a limousine outside the building. There was a fight. Then Mr. Brooks and another man were thrown into the back of a hearse. The hearse and another car drove off rapidly.
A hearse, you say? That don't sound right.
I saw it with my own eyes.
I'll be right down,
barked the speaker, slamming down the receiver. He stabbed an office annunciator and began talking into it.
Doc, Gus just called an alarm. Ham pulled up in a limousine, then 2 cars full of dust waylaid him. The guard captain says they dumped him and the other guy in the back of a funeral hearse and took off.
Take the regular elevator to the lobby. I will follow you directly, said a voice of remarkably restrained tonality.
Gotcha,
said Monk, tearing out of the reception room as fast as his bandy legs could carry him.
Aww.
He had the short, blocky build of a Congo gorilla, barrel chest, narrow hips, and a hammered-down, red-bristled skull, squatting between rolling, muscle-bound shoulders, almost bereft of a neck. He would not need to stoop very much to go about on all fours. His burly arms were freakishly elongated and ended in rusty fists that would have done a caveman proud. Lunging out into the plain-looking corridor, Monk sprang for a passenger elevator, chabbed for the call button impatiently with a thumb, and climbed on board when the elevator door rolled aside to admit him. Pressing the button marked lobby, he sent the lift shooting downward. This was a modern elevator, so it dropped 86 stories in a remarkably short period of time without requiring any change in elevators. Many of the lifts in this, the tallest skyscraper in New York, were designed to carry passengers to a certain floor, after which they switched to another bank of elevators, the original designers not having defeated the problem of building an elevator mechanism which could carry a cage up all 86 floors. This particular elevator had been designed by Doc Savage himself and therefore needed no transfer.
The only surprising part about that is, like, it wasn't one of Doc Savage's buddies who had gotten licked by the problem and had to give up.
Yeah. When the cage jarred to a halt on the lobby level, Monk shoved out of the still opening door and was momentarily astonished to see that Doc Savage had beaten him to the ground. His blocky jaw sagged comically. Poor Monk. Every single time he's described in this book, and I know this was a trope from the original Savage stories, Monk is supposed to be comically ugly.
Yeah.
And so every single time he's described, it's not just the chemist, it's like the hairy chemist, or the simian doctor, or the incredibly ugly Monk Mayfair. And it's just, it makes you feel pretty bad for the guy after a while.
We haven't talked about him, but one of the rich people who's linked with the Shadow is Lamont Cranston, who's sort of a secret identity of the Shadow, but not actually the same person. And he is a globe-trotting explorer of the old type. And when he meets Monk for the first time, it's described as he looked like one of the Congo gorillas that Lamont Cranston would know how to handle if he had a rifle or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh man, you're really dunking on this poor guy.
But it should be mentioned several times also that Monk is described as being ruddy and having red hair.
Yeah.
So it's not what it sounds like.
No.
He's just described as a giant, ugly, ill-proportioned man, and it made me feel real bad for him. Especially the part where there's a fight later on where someone cuts his belt, and it immediately causes his pants to fall down, like comically, like so everyone can see his underwear. Even
They're
the
red.
Shadow, yeah, they're red. Even the Shadow laughs at him, and then he has to pull his pants back up because he, apparently, like myself and Hank Hill. Monk has no butt.
He has no ass.
And it has to rely on his belt to hold his pants up.
The man has no ass, Jay.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
I can relate, dude.
it's notable that who cuts his pants with his sword cane is his best friend / eternal rival Ham Brooks.
Yeah, and by the way, it should be mentioned also their eternal rivalry started at some point during the service. It's not described in detail, but it said something to do with purloined hams.
Yeah.
So the two of them have a blood rivalry over stolen meat, which I like a lot.
Right. I think they might have actually described that in the Green Bell, but it was just like, you remember that Shovels scene from The Worms of Blearmouth?
Yeah.
Some kinds of humor are not best on the written page.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that was dramatic.
It was dramatic.
That
It was
was.
dramatic hearing about how unfortunately ugly this man is.
And it was surprisingly so.
Ooh, but I think I'm ready for some more surprises.
Dare you turn the page and be surprised by the Sinister Shadow?
Never run empty, we're vigorous guys. As the show runs longer and bigger in size, got them hungry minds and the rigorous eyes. Let us tell you about this fucking book's biggest surprise. Boom!
All right, here is Biggest Surprise, where we talk about our biggest surprise of the book.
Yep. So, what was it for you?
That it was written in 2015, because I did not read this ahead of time. I did the research after the fact, and I legitimately thought that this was a collection of pulps from the 1930s. So that was a very big surprise for me.
Nice. Mine was actually a plot twist that I'm going to read you something that just stuck out to me when I read it, and I didn't like it, but it was explained later. Shapeless and bat-like, the shadow hovered over the prostrate form of his new conquest. The thin beam of a flash flicked out, racing over the features of the unconscious man. The cloaked intruder lifted the senseless body, bore it over, and placed it beside the other. As the phantom shape stooped, the rippling black cloak seemed to spread and cover both forms. Fully a minute passed before it fell away. The form revealed seemed to be that of the fellow who had succumbed second. His face was that of the unconscious man. To all occurrences, the person who stood there was the guard, although the fellow lay senseless beside his comrade. A master of impersonation and makeup, this phantom. And I was bummed by that because I was like, okay, so that's the shadow, assuming somebody's identity. I really don't like that they're explaining that the shadow is a master of impersonation and makeup. That seemed just very glaringly out of character for the shadow. And also a few pages later, the shadow is, disguised himself in somebody else's costume or in somebody else's uniform, and he's bulging it because he's simply too large for the uniform. And he's unusually strong when he fights. And then it's finally revealed at the end that wasn't the shadow. That was Doc impersonating the shadow so that the shadow can impersonate another guy. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to name this. I'm going to call that the collision twist, because I figured out that was the case slightly before the reveal, but it was still satisfying because they'd given us everything we needed to know. Because the shadow isn't the master of impersonation and makeup. That's Doc.
Yeah, that's true. We knew that already.
Yeah, we knew that. And so, I that was a big surprise. And pretty well done.
Yeah.
So, good job.
Good job.
And now you had to hear more of that book. So, I'm pleased at least. Okay. Do you know what they would do? The worst transition of all time.
Do you know the shadow knows what they will do?
Yeah.
Here's a song.
Sometimes the tensions are hard to divine, and others the clear as day. So tell me, what would they do?
All right, what would they do? What would they do? It's a little segment where we try to put ourselves in the shoes of characters from this book and figure out what they do in particular situations.
All right. I'm going to read you a brief passage.
All right.
When they came up on the limousine with its burning headlights, Isaac Coffran, he's the funeral director, let out an oath unbecoming of a man of his advanced years. Jay, you are not a man of advanced years. However, for the purposes of this segment, I'm going to ask you, if you had to give out an unbecoming oath, what would it be?
Oh, this is tough. I'm trying to think about the last time I unintentionally released an oath. But generally, they're just fuck.
Yeah.
So,
But that's appropriate for a man of your years.
That's
What
true.
would be inappropriate for a man of your years?
Jumping Jesus on a pogo stick.
Yeah. Great Caesar's ghost as you turn into Perry White.
HE-double-L hockey sticks.
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good one. I like that. Yeah, I think mine would definitely involve the word poopy.
Oh, I know. Christ on a crutch.
Christ on a crutch. That's good.
Yeah, it would be that for sure.
I made one up that I will occasionally sometimes say, poop in a boot.
Poop in a boot.
Yeah.
That's great. I like it because it kind of sounds like it could be a Garth Brooks song.
Oh, yeah, the poop boot boogie.
That's Billy Ray Cyrus. And also, if you request poop in a boot, they'll kick you out of the karaoke bar.
That's very true.
It's like asking to sing Journey. You're just never going to get your number pulled.
Yeah, it's been done. You're probably not going to do it better. You know why? You know why I know that? Because there was a guy who was so good at karaokeing Journey songs that he's now doing it live with the remnants of Journey behind him for a living.
I have been to not 2, but 3 karaoke bars where the book includes the song by the Dead Kennedys, Too Drunk to Fuck, and it is crossed out with a marker, which leads me to believe there's some starter KJ set, karaoke DJ set, that comes with a karaoke CD that includes Too Drunk to Fuck.
Yep.
But at least 3 DJs have been like, well, I'm not going to let anyone sing that, and crossed it out of their book so you can't request it.
So a rule of thumb that I was taught is anytime you see a sign prohibiting something, and I think this counts as a sign prohibiting something, that thing has been done at least twice.
And it's been done poorly.
Well, I mean, look, when Jello shows up to your karaoke night, you just want to make sure he does something that's not a song he helped write.
That's what it probably is. It's just Jello shows up at Bender's on karaoke night and is
Hi, guys.
it's me. I'm either going to sing a song or lecture you about rudimentary leftist politics. Who's ready for something?
And either way, whichever I'm doing, you'll quickly wish I was doing the other thing.
All right, I'm off to file lawsuits against former band members.
Anyway, I will say that the taped copy of No More Cocoons that somebody gave me really did help me set me on the path I tread to this day. So thanks, Jessica.
I just love, like, my favorite karaoke place is back in Orlando, Florida. It's called Big Daddy's. It's very much like a southern bar, but they took their karaoke night very seriously. The DJ was an amazing, amazing woman named DJ Di, who is just super great voice, really entertaining, really friendly, funny. They had a crowned king of karaoke who was a questionably homed gentleman from the area named King Billy, who would always sing Friends in Low Places, but he would change the gonna slip on down to the Oasis part to slip on down to Big Daddies, and everyone in the audience would sing along.
The crowd pops.
Yeah. However, if you requested Friends in Low Places and you were not King Billy, you were going to get a stern lecture because only the king can slip on down to Big Daddies.
It's called gimmick infringement.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's generally frowned upon.
Yeah.
All right, so we now know what your favorite karaoke bar is. But I have to ask you about one more favorite of yours.
I do want to issue a warning. I don't think DJ Di does karaoke at Big Daddy's anymore. So if you're listening to this in the Orlando area, don't necessarily go to Big Daddy's. Look up DJ Di, karaoke DJ, and go to wherever she is, because I guarantee you will have a great time. This is the first time an extremely regional karaoke DJ has ever been plugged on this show, but she is a joy to do karaoke with.
Tell him J.W. Friedman sent you, and don't forget your packet of Cranston's whitening powder.
You know Jay, the long-haired guy that used to sing The Darkness? He sent me.
And DJ Di would be like, okay.
No, she'd remember. Trust me. She's that good.
Do you still believe in a thing called love?
Just listen to the rhythm of my heart.
All right, so let's do a quick What Is Your Fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
All right, faves, what is it?
Jay, I'm going to present you with a list of options.
Okay.
And before I do so, I want you to set yourself to 11-year-old boy mode and understand that when I ask
That's
you...
not hard.
Yeah. So understand the following question not as what the words are, but as the following. Who would win in a fight? Jay, what is your fave? Doc or the Shadow?
This is tough. And since I'm 11, and since we already know my proclivities, I'm going to have to frame this as a professional wrestling match.
Okay.
Doc Savage, very much your white meat baby face. You know, he would be very strong, kind of Kurt Angle-ish, I would imagine. Probably his gear would have the American flag on it. The Shadow, dastardly heel, I think, even though he's a good guy.
Right.
He'd be sneaky. He'd probably have some kind of mist that he would spray in your face,
Oh,
or maybe
for sure.
reach into his tights for some kind of foreign object, which is nowhere near as weird as it sounds if you're a wrestling fan.
It's offensive. It's an
Oh,
international object.
There's a whole story behind that I will get into one day, but not right now. But literally that happened because of a Ted Turner mandate that was misunderstood by WCW broadcast. Well, I've already started. Ted Turner didn't want people to say foreign on his news programs. He wanted them to say international. Well, apparently word got down to the wrestling broadcasters, and they thought that meant you could no longer use foreign to mean anything. So they started referring to things like people sneaking a wrench into the wrestling ring as an international object, which is one of my favorite stories ever. So anyway, I think the Shadow's got him on this one because he'd like disappear under the ring or something,
right?
And then the lights would go down, and then they'd come back up, and like the Shadow would be like right behind Doc, but he'd be behind him with like, you know, a steel chair or something when the ref's like still blinded by the flashbulb, and he'd win via dastardly means. So yeah, the Shadow for sure.
I definitely also prefer the Shadow because of the way you just framed it. I really think you were basically describing 1997, the Crow era Sting as the Shadow,
basically,
like beating up Lex Luger.
That's possible. I think in my mind, yeah, a little bit of that.
Got Lex Luger noted for the bronzer.
Oh, the Lex Luger could be Doc Savage,
Except Doc Savage is supposed to be smart and he has to talk sometimes.
and he's tall.
Yeah.
Which I say about a man who's probably 6'3".
Well. So I definitely prefer the Shadow as well. I think just because he's so much more mysterious. Doc Savage, to me, I really enjoy. But mostly what I enjoy is that the first thing I read was kind of a metatextual approach. A science fiction writer just read all of them and then wrote a biography of him. I talked about this last time, as though he were trying to make sense of all the exploits and like put them into chronological order and pretend they all happened. And it was great. It was a great fun read that my dad just had a paperback of kicking around the house. And every time I think about it, I'm like, I really kind of wish he'd done it for the Shadow instead, because I think the Shadow is slightly cooler. But that might just be because there's more room for me to project into it because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for those of you who tune in to hear us have knocked down, dragged out arguments about what's cooler, sorry, we don't do it this time.
Yeah. We agree.
Also, the Shadow's henchmen are decidedly cooler.
Well, I don't know.
Because they're just regular dudes.
That's true. Yeah, they're not all super scientists or super lawyers, or I can't remember what any of the other ones are.
There's a super electrical engineer who plays a like very tertiary role in this one.
Tom,
That's
yeah.
Long Tom. That's the other thing is since
super electrical engineer. That's like the worst power to have.
I don't know.
He's the best plumber in the world, folks.
There's a great side moment. I might actually read this as a bonus later. There's a great side moment where he's had to infiltrate a radio station.
Oh, yeah, that part's pretty good.
And he just like confronts his boss and is like, I did the job. Now it's done. I'm going home. And the guy's like, fuck you, you're fired.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, don't forget to send my check. And I really like that as a potent illustration of the power of withholding labor.
I just like thinking about people whispering like, Long Tom, he's the best in the world with an oscilloscope.
Yeah, very, very much so. There's also a couple of others. And one of the things I don't like about Doc Savage as a convention is you can't really have all 6 of them in one adventure because it's just too cumbersome.
Yeah.
So there has to be.
And also, I mean, one of them is the world's greatest racist, so that's kind of tough.
Yikes. So there always has to be the explanation of why the other two are off on assignment or the other three are off on assignment. So this time, the civil engineer, who's the greatest in his field, is building railroads.
Now this man can build a bridge.
Oh, it's exactly what he's doing. He's building railroads in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because other people can't. And then the other is, I think,
him out here to work on the old Bay Bridge.
Hey-o!
Because they did a horrible job. All right, continue.
Yeah. And then the other guy was, I think he's the world's greatest archaeologist.
They're all kind of boring things to be the world's greatest at.
Well, they were probably a lot more exciting in 1932.
Look at Ayn Rand. She was excited about archaeology. So
No, she was excited about architecture.
Oh, you're right.
That's
I got
different.
it mixed up.
Yeah.
And people are still kind of excited about architects, like especially in serious movies where families are disrupted via crime means. Almost always a fucking architect in the mix somewhere.
There's one under the pillow right now.
Yeah.
There may be one hiding in your closet. Who knows?
Note to listeners, do not become an architect or your family will be tragically torn asunder.
And only the shadow will be able to bring you back together. All right.
I think we're out of games. You ready to take a break?
I'm out of games, frankly. I'm out of gas.
All right, we're back. We are done talking about the wild and wacky adventures of Doc Savage.
I've put aside my battered floppy hat, slipped out of my cloak.
Put on my robe and wizard hat. But for those who couldn't tell, I do just want to give another special shout out to Will Murray for really delivering when it came to providing this book to us.
Yep.
And I also think for doing a really good job kind of capturing the legacy of something he was a fan of and reproducing it. I think the book could be a lot shorter, but I think you could do worse than reading this book if you're a fan of pulpy entertainment.
Hell yeah.
And I would look into his work and all of his other work. Just don't order it from his broken website.
Or, yeah, maybe shoot him an email first. Use the contact form to just reach out because, his work definitely deserves support. I think I recommended a long time ago. He wrote the Doc Savage adaptation that played on NPR in the early 80s.
Oh, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And,
he really likes Doc Savage.
And he really gets Doc Savage in ways that I really, really enjoy. So, yeah, big ups to Will Murray. If you see this, I hope you don't immediately assume that the context of this being a podcast about bad books is in any way casting aspersions at you or your work.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about things that we like that may not necessarily be part of the great literary canon. I think this is one of those.
For sure.
Also, don't call him Bill, and you didn't actually see him at a party. Well, I think it's time we recommend things anyway, so here's that new song.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you about a thing we like. Recommendations.
All right, here's where we talk about things that we like. Collision, I think you should go first because mine is very pedestrian.
Oh, well, mine is motorized and hyper modern. It goes all the way to the 86th floor.
Is it a gyroplane?
No, it's an elevator that doesn't suck. No. So yeah, we've been recording back to back a lot lately because life is inconvenient and difficult. So I'm going to recommend something that is going to be inconvenient and difficult for anyone who's not me to see. It is in the New Orleans Museum of Art, a place that I had the opportunity to visit a couple weeks ago. And it is a set of black and white silent films created by Garrett Bradley. And the collection is entitled America. And the backstory is that at some point, the Library of Congress did a survey and concluded that 70% of American silent films made between 1912 and 1929 are missing. So Garrett Bradley comes along and she says, well, what if I recreated these missing films? I imagined what they were and recreated them, but all made by and for African Americans.
Oh, cool.
And it's a really great exhibit. It's a really great set of short films that really remind you that there's an awful lot of things that movies can do other than film a stage play or present basically cartoon spectacle of hyper-powered things fighting each other. And I really, really enjoyed them, and I really enjoyed being reminded of that.
Well, speaking of hyper-powered things fighting each other in a cartoonish environment, I am going to be incredibly pedestrian and recommend the thing that is probably going to be recommended on every other podcast you hear this month, which is Season 3 of Stranger Things, a show I had given up on. I think, earlier Collision stated not just the best season of Stranger Things, but possibly the best season of any of the original Netflix series. I would go so far as to agree. Things happen in every episode. There's some really entertaining moments. There's funny moments. There's scary moments. There's some creepy shit. There's some surprising character twists and turns. I just think all in all, it was good. It's one of those things where I sat down to watch one episode and I ended up watching them all at once, which I always hate myself after I do. But, sometimes weekends are boring, and there you go.
Sometimes you just want to hang out with your fucking pals, Hop and Winona Ryder.
Yeah, I always want to hang out with Winona Ryder, but that's a completely different story, and that's been the same since, Beetlejuice. So.
Heather's much noob.
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw. All right, so
speaking of inappropriate oaths.
Yeah, so sometimes we get letters.
We do.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
All right, this is a letter we have received from Morgan, fake last name, and it is entitled, and this is a eye-catching, sure to grab our attention, subject line, I like your podcast! Exclamation point.
Great.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hello. I'm at work and not much is happening, so I thought the best use of my time today would be emailing you guys and letting you know how much I love your podcast.
Agreed.
Strong agree. I spend a lot of time on the road because I also live in the Bay Area and I'm always looking for new podcasts. I found you through the James Patterson-a-thon crossover thing you did with Kate and Renata of Worst Bestsellers. Side point, which one? Because we've done a couple.
Oh, that's true, yeah. There are Patterson pals, as we like to call them. So.
Yeah, exactly. The collaboration that Patterson built. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't think about that before time. I'm so mad I didn't know about you earlier. I missed your live show by 3 weeks.
Well, that sucks.
It sucks. There will be more. Anyway, I love the little songs. I hate that they get stuck in my head. Strong disagree. And I'm always entertained by your music tangents. A week or so ago, I had a resurgence of Calliope syndrome, and I discovered that Wichita, Kansas is not actually pronounced Wichita, but Wichita, or maybe Wichita? No, it's Wichita.
I've got bad news for you about a certain city in, is it Winnipeg?
Winnipeg is the city in Manitoba.
Oh, in Manitoba, yeah.
Yeah.
It is actually pronounced Regina, and it took me a really long time to realize that.
Oh, it's 1,000% Regina. One of the
It sounded way better in my head.
Yep. One of the most frequently mocked city names in the WHL.
I wonder why.
Because everything that sounds like that is related to a woman is negatively valued in our sick culture.
Yes.
Anyway, Regina, that's a powerful one. According to my family, this is up there with debris, Debris.
That's me. That's me right there, folks. I did Debris for a long time.
Yep.
You did Derbis.
I did Derbis, which is even worse because not only is it wrong, it gets the letters in the wrong order.
And it sounds like the name of a bully from elementary school.
Oh, I fucking hated Derbis.
Oh, no, here comes fucking Derbis. Hide your lunch money.
That was such a dick. And Admiral, as things they will never let me live down.
Admiral.
Yeah. Right there with you. I don't know if I've talked about this
Same
one before.
root, though.
I've had huge problems with gesture throughout my life. I think gesture is something I was known for saying.
Yeah, I'm running out of ones that pop into mind, but oh man, I mean, as a bookish kid without a lot of bookish friends, there were so many of those words that just floated around that I still get wrong to this day.
It's it's a little bit of shame. I think
litigious instead of litigious. I still can't say it.
Yeah.
I just not hanging around with enough people who spend all their time getting angry about politics, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. So yeah, we're all right there with you. Calliope syndrome. It just means you read books, so it's not a bad thing.
Instead of having them read to you, no big deal.
Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to let you know that I'm really enjoying your show. Currently working through your back catalog. I can see a lot of episodes I can already tell I'm going to love, but so far one of my favorites is definitely Maze Runner, if only because I watched the movie, and so I'm somewhat familiar with the story. Yeah, God, I don't know. I read the book, and I wouldn't say I'm familiar with the story of
that's
Maze Runner.
because, as mentioned in the episode, which this listener will eventually hear, the movie is actually 1,000 times better than the book. That's one of those Jaws kind of situations.
So thank you so much. That was a very nice letter, and hopefully all of us can come together and remember that Calliope syndrome is mildly embarrassing, rarely fatal.
Yeah. Unless you're like, I don't know, there's some kind of evil villain that's got you suspended over a shark pit and then wants to make you pronounce an obscure word correctly.
That would suck so hard.
It's like a spelling bee, but on what, Americans think Japanese game shows are like.
No. Okay.
Speaking of game shows, just real quick, got to interrupt this. Old Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors. Have you seen this bullshit he's doing right now?
No.
He's got a show. Well, he's got a show, quote unquote. His name and presence is attached to a competitive, wacky mini golf show entitled Holy Moly.
Oh. If the host isn't a mole in the style of the mole from Caddyshack, that's a major missed opportunity in my opinion.
All I'm saying is I think it's a great sign that I'm a huge Warriors fan. When they're in the playoffs,
yeah,
I think the run is coming to an end, folks.
Yeah, it seems like that the window is probably closing.
Splash Brothers can't hit threes anymore, but they can start television shows about miniature golf.
It's better than the one that I saw somebody being very angry about for what sounded to me like very good reasons about the kid from Stranger Things doing a prank show whose targets are people who have just gotten temporary job positions.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, don't fuck with your temps, folks.
That makes me want to retract my earlier recommendation.
Well, I mean, somebody who does one good thing, it's not necessarily completely annihilated by them doing a bad thing that's unrelated.
That's a good point. I mean, Winona Ryder has made her mistakes, too, and she's still, the greatest person to have ever walked the earth.
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
Winona.
Hopefully. Give me a ring. Give me a ring.
Shout outs to her. She was on...
Give me a ring, dub.
She was on one of our bonus episodes, which are accessible only on Patreon for subscribers.
It's the one called... It's the episode called the one where Jay just goes...
I mean, Winona Ryder probably no worse than number 2 on our mutual lists of people who would turn us into that Chris Farley interviewer sketch where it's like, hey, remember when you were in Heathers? That was cool. Remember when you were in Reality Bites? That was cool.
When you got caught shoplifting for no reason, that
was cool.
That was actually kind of awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of things that don't exist, there's something that does exist, and that is our Patreon. That is a way that you can support the show for a small monthly donation, kind of NPR pledge style, on patreon.com/IDEOTVpod.
That is the place to go. And if you donate at a $5 level or higher, you get access to all sorts of aforementioned bonus episodes.
Yep.
Unfortunately, none of which do include Winona Ryder.
Yet.
We're working on it.
Right.
Our people, they're talking to her people.
Yeah.
And by our people, I mean, the ones that only exist when I'm asleep at night.
Yeah. We're not doing quite well enough to have people yet, but we're working on it. And with your help, by gum, we'll get there one day. If you'd like other ways to support us, you can do so by rating and reviewing us. We don't make that request as often as we probably should, but it does help, and it makes us feel better, and it makes me feel better when people don't make fun of my voice. That would be great.
Yeah, me too.
If you want to email us, you can do so at idon'tevenowntelevision@gmail.com. There's a Facebook group that people are having a hell of a good time in lately. Crab pictures, pet pictures. Occasionally people talk about books. Whatever. And you can find that on Facebook by searching for the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit.
It's all right there.
It's all right there for you.
At your fingertips.
It's just waiting for you.
On the information superhighway.
Waiting for you, lurking in the corner, surging forth like a rowdy cloud. If I'd had a little bit more time, I really did want to go through and get like a bunch of famous notable laughs and queue up like a bad soundboard, because I thought that would be hilarious. But actually, I like the laughs you've been doing better, I think.
I've been trying to think of like what's a notable laugh. Who has a notable laugh?
Well, do you remember the really weird Eddie Murphy honk from the early 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, imagining the Shadow delivering that laugh.
That would be good.
Would be pretty good.
I'm trying to think.
Maybe Urkel?
Yeah, the Muttley.
Oh,
which is kind of how I laugh in real life.
Yeah, the Muttley laugh was 100% on my list. Maybe like a kind of Jack Nicholson jokery laugh.
Oh, and of course the Nelson Muntz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after the disembodied hand knocks you out,
a ghostly voice swoops in the room and goes, I can't do it. I'm bad at Nelson Muntz. Yours was better. Well, it's probably about time for us to say goodbye.
We must
to our family.
We got to slink back into the shadows from whence we came.
It's true. But until the next time we speak to you via antique radio handset, please remember,
ride the crab. We love you.